Story 1. He could only talk about himself and never asked me any questions. Conversations started to feel like I was interviewing him. Anytime I would tell him something about myself, he would just derail the conversation and make it about himself. I grew tired of that pretty fast. Story 2. After rejecting me for someone else, I still had a crush. But when she got together with that guy's best friend and both ghosted the dude she rejected me for, I snapped out of it. Story 3. It was a dumb high school crush, but still. I told her how I felt, and immediately she started squeezing, by the way. You know I don't feel that way about you, right? Into nearly every interaction. Well, she made it really easy to stop having feelings for her, that's for sure. Story 4. I was dating a girl who was exactly my type. Pretty, confident, fun. She was great. We went out on a double date to a theme park and sat on the ride. The guy put the bar down and I, feeling it was not so secure, just casually pushed it down a bit. This pushed against her phone in her pocket and probably caused her a second of discomfort. Her reaction, ouch, be careful, you idiot. I thought to myself, wow, if this is what she's like now, how will she be in the future? I just lost all interest instantly. To do that so vulgarly in public, for me, showed a lack of respect. Story 5. He was just so dumb. He was super hot, funny, but naive and clueless, and not curious about learning at all. To be with him would have been like parenting. Story 6. She hated Weird Al Yankovic. It wasn't just he's not my thing, but full-on despised him as if he were a sex offender. I was literally 2 sentences away from asking her out, thinking I had a decent chance. Then she started going off about him. Then my mind just played out 1,000 reasons why she and I would never work. Story 7. Her former husband was actually very much still her husband, and most of what she had told me about herself was a lie. In addition to that, she was actively defrauding a couple of organizations that were supposed to be helping people struggling with addiction and mental health. Not only did it kill my crush, but it also made me feel really disillusioned about some things I had been very passionate about at one time. There was a lot more to the situation, but it all kind of came out at once, and I've never had my opinion of a person change so quickly in a negative way like that. Story 8. I, a 23-year-old male, sold my car and got a night shift job to help her, a 22-year-old female, when the government seized the land she and her parents were renting for their RV home and her camper trailer without water. She had nowhere to go, so I drove her car as she had no license yet, with the understanding it was temporary until she could get a license. I used the opportunity to pay off debt. Between school, work, and her schedule, I slept maybe 2 to 4 hours a day for a year and a half. Eventually, it started weighing on my health, so I gave up and broke up. She got her license 2 weeks later and crashed her car. Karma got me back. I still stuck to paying off my debt early and walked to work for a year. Debt was paid off in March, 3 years ahead of schedule. Story 9. In elementary school, it was always because they got their hair cut. I would have a huge crush on a boy, and he would come back from the weekend with his hair cut, and I would be like, oh boy, he is ugly now. Story 10. Girl, who is a few years older than me, let me take her out after knowing each other for a couple of years. The date went well, and everything was a fun night. A few days later, she asked if I was serious about getting into a relationship, and I said of course. She then said, good, because if I have to deal with another situation like this, I'll be extremely upset. I had just told her 3 days prior that my dad ended his life when I was 9, so any kind of attraction was gone instantaneously, the first time that happened that fast. Story 11. This woman I fancied told me after the 3rd date that she had a child and was pregnant with her 2nd. But she wanted to leave her boyfriend, who knocked her up. This seemed like too much chaos for 24-year-old me. Story 12. I was on the way to being head over heels for a guy. We had been on 3 or 4 dates after I had known him through work, so fairly superficially, for about a year. One day we were chatting over dinner and I mentioned having had lunch with a good friend, whom he also knew as we all used to work together. And he nonchalantly says, oh, name the racist lover? Like he was telling me it was nice out. Totally casually drops a racial slur into the conversation. Said friend was indeed married to a black man, and I nearly knocked the table over as I got up to leave so fast. I was absolutely stunned, There was nothing about his behavior at work that indicated he was racist. Suffice it to say, there were no subsequent dates. Story 13. After saying yes when I asked her out, she proceeded to treat me like dirt and talked about how much she hated white men. She is a white woman, so I do not know what her thought process was. Story 14. He blasted his relationship issues publicly in class. He was not to be trusted to keep things private. The crush I had on him began to die from that point because he lacked respect for his current girlfriend. Story 15. Never started a conversation. I always had to be the one initiating conversations. And even doing that, he never contributed anything. Always just 1 or 2 word replies. Oh, and always agreeing with me regardless of the topic. Story 16. Went on a date and he ordered a steak. He refused to cut it and just picked it all up on his fork and started taking massive bites out of it. I'd be fine if that's how you are alone at home, but in public it was a total turnoff. And he also would never tip any more than $5, regardless of service or cost. Story 17. I actually had a dream. In the dream, he told me in front of an audience that we were not even friends and I should not make such a big deal out of things. I woke up and realized Dream Him had been more honest with me than Real Him was ever going to be, and I got kind of over him in my sleep. Thank you, subconscious. Story 18. Bad communication. Don't tell me I'm worth the effort of something. Ask me to be patient, then ghost me for days and then text, I was so busy. Now, it takes 2 seconds to say, hey, I'm going to be out of contact for a few days, but I will catch up soon, instead of leaving me on read for a week. Story 19. Her voice. She was one of the cutest redheads I had ever seen, but when she talked, I thought she was doing an impression of Minnie Mouse. Killed it. Story 20. While this is still going, I'll add my own story into the mix. I was literally about 2 seconds away from asking him out before I checked his Twitter one last time. The guy went on an entire rant about how Taylor Swift and Beyoncé are brainwashing their fans into voting for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump in an effort to overturn the election. This guy seemed so completely normal and cool before I saw this. One of the most shocking plot twists of my lifetime. Story 21. When I saw how they treated anyone that wasn't their best friend or family, I realized there was nothing attractive about being snotty to everyone, especially cashiers and servers. Story 22. They opened their mouth and started talking. They showed interest back. Honestly, the best crushes are the ones from afar. We don't need to talk and get to know each other because I've already built the perfect person in my mind solely based on your looks. Whatever personality you have just won't live up to my expectations or fantasies about said crush. Story 23. To name a few. Being rude to other people, being casually sexist or racist, going from hi to do you like anal in minutes, only talks about themselves, doesn't want to vote. Story 24. He had sex with every girl in our friend group. If every girl can have him, then I don't want him. Also, he was clearly using sex for free validation, so I'd rather pass. Story 25. A longtime crush. Someone I'd get together with when she came around to seeing me for me. Anyway, I got closer to her and found out the following. She has 5 backup guys in case her current boyfriend doesn't work out. She only replies immediately to family. You can't have a conversation with her if, 2 messages later, you have to wait a business day for a response. You can expect a call from her to rant about something that benefits her, but the messages you sent will be responded to the next day. So self-centered. Terrible work ethics. The type that comes in at 11, takes a mandatory lunch break at 1, and leaves at 4. She maintains no self-improvement is required from her side. You can take her as she is or go away. She claims she doesn't actually drink but is always in the club with one of the guys or at home getting plastered on the weekend with her girlfriends, then complains about having to go to work hungover. I don't know why I have a crush on her. Story 26. Friends with benefit situation. Wouldn't say I had a major crush on him, but I did think he was attractive. At one point, I was working with him and a former romantic involvement of his, so we agreed to keep it discreet during the whole situation to avoid hurting anyone's feelings. I don't drive, and we were coming home late from a rehearsal, so he offered to drive me home. Lo and behold, I forgot my phone in his car, and he had to drive back to hand it over to me. Once I came out of my apartment to take the phone, he made a joke about how he deserves to come up to my apartment now because he drove to give me back my phone. I don't know why, but I instantly got uncomfortable, and my crush vanished in a millisecond. Story 27. He complained that he expected me to pay for our meals, lunch, and dinner, too, when I already paid for our theme park entrance tickets, the bus ride back to our city, and tickets to the rides that weren't part of the main ticket. There were 7 of us. I was paying maybe around $150 for all of this in a country where the minimum monthly wage was about $300, and I was a student. Unless they were eating expensive meals or getting extra snacks or things we weren't doing as a group, I'd say everyone would have only spent about $10 to $15 on themselves. And he complained about that. I think everyone except him knew that he was only there because he was my crush. Or maybe he knew and thought he could take advantage of it, but I don't think he was that malicious. I pretty much stopped talking to him after that. Story 28. Your good girlfriend material, but he proceeds to date the other one instead. Well, I'm sent to the friend zone and all interest is crushed. I know I'll never be more than a friend when this happens. Story 29. Tried to get me to pay for their Sephora purchase on a date while waiting for a table at a restaurant nearby. Still ate with them because I was famished, but the conversation during dinner confirmed my suspicions. Story 30. When she mentioned in conversation that she liked someone else, I realized I was just in the friend zone, and reality hit me. I just moved on, I guess. We're still friends. Story 31. Had a crush on a guy for weeks at the beginning of high school. Got to know him, we got closer, and I eventually checked out his Facebook page. Found a picture of him wearing a ridiculous Confederate flag morph suit. His page was covered in redneck memes and Southern heritage pride. We lived in New York, by the way. Unfortunately, it was too late and he had a crush on me at that point too. We went to homecoming together because I felt like I couldn't reject him after essentially leading him on. We drifted apart after that. Story 32. I love you in 3 days. I think you are my soulmate in 2 weeks. I am looking for a new apartment after 1 month close to where I live. No obsessional psycho vibes. Story 33. My ex-husband and I found a wallet at the airport, and I was like, cool, I'll turn it in. And he was like, I'll do it. You go catch your flight. So I was like, okay, bye. Later, I was chatting with him and mentioned the wallet and how awesome it is to do a good deed. And he said, oh yeah, plus the $200 tip I took from it. That's how I started to realize that maybe this guy is not a good person. Story 34. Unnecessary anger and road rage claim that men are more logical and less emotional than women, but they throw a fit when things don't go their way. I could go on. Story 35. Misinterpreted something I said, implied that I had a vibe that I did not want to hang out because he misinterpreted what I said, then copped an attitude when that, in fact, made me not want to hang out anymore. The stress of the situation made my disabilities flare up and caused me to miss a doctor appointment. It made me realize my health is more important and being single is worth my time. Story 36. In the early 1980s, I had spent the previous 6 months as crew on yachts in the south of France, Cannes, Antibes, Juan Les Pins, among the rich, powerful, and beautiful. I had quite the time as a 23-year-old. Now back in England with a deep tan fading in our glorious wet weather, it rained for 3 solid months after, I swear, lamenting the beautiful people I was among only last week, when I saw this incredible vision of beauty in Budgeons, unblemished by the acne sported by the rest of the local female population. Her skin was like porcelain, her hair a pristine river of jet black, and her lithe figure moved with the grace of someone of higher position. I was entranced and, like a child, followed her around the store, peeking around corners, conspiring to pass closely to her, until finally, she made her way to the checkout, where, sadly, it all came tumbling down when she opened her mouth and spoke in her native Berkshire dialect. All right, Kev, give me 20 number 6. Will you? And you got anything for my rear? It's been itching like crazy. I was crestfallen, but it didn't take too long to laugh at my own foolishness. Story 37. Oh boy, currently in the absolute depths of a crush, and hoping she does something along the lines of these comments. Staying at her house tonight too. Hope she likes torturing insects or something so I can lose this crush. Story 38. On our first date, he had told me all of his ex-girlfriends were strippers. It was a turn-off, but nothing serious. He had bought some land with a shed, and his job was growing marijuana and selling it. Still a turn-off, but I was willing to give him a chance. He lived in the shed with his 2 dogs, and he proceeded to tell me that his dogs use the bathroom inside because he doesn't wake up to let them out. He was very attractive, but his vocabulary was poor and obviously his hygiene. Story 39. I don't want you to think I was flirting with you. We were friends, and she knew I liked her. That was an unnecessarily hurtful way to say she didn't like me. I didn't even want to try after seeing that smiley. It broke me. Story 40. He got a perm. I didn't think guys did that, and he looked awful. I pictured him with tiny rollers in his hair and went dry as the desert. In a twist, he suddenly noticed I existed after he got his hair done. But the damage was done. I said no when he asked me out,